is definitely a video to be doing. First, I want to apologize. I know the lighting sucks, and this is part of why I haven't been doing videos because the bed space where I am sleeping is in an old RV that I kind of use as my creative space, and I don't really like the background of it. Anyways, I'm gonna just do this anyways because I know that those of you that need the content or what I have to say or Spirit has to say, you won't care about what the background looks like. Um, in any case, something just came up where some folks are, well, it's a combination. Some people are challenging that astrology has zero connections to the twin flames journey, and others are simply questioning what does astrology have to do with the twin flame journey, especially when so many twin flame tarot readers connect with astrology. Which I want to say two things. One, a lot of times it is simply easier when you're doing readings and you're feeling like you really want to connect to specific energies, or if you have been doing um, tarot astrology, which I call tarot astrology. Sometimes when you get into either that can bring you into the twin flame journey, or you're already in a twin flame journey, and so you kind of connect the two. So it's not necessarily connected. Like if a reader is saying, doing the zodiac signs and also twin flame readings, that's not necessarily because they are connected. It's what the reader feels called to do. So I will definitely say, I mean, in terms of that, it's not necessarily connected. But I'm a firm believer that there aren't coincidences either. And so if you see a lot of readers, even if they have no idea what the greater connections are in astrology, that are doing twin flame readings and talking about twin flame journeys, and they're like feeling called to talk about the zodiac energies, that's not a coincidence, it's a synchronicity. And because they are connected. Now, here's the thing. Um, I think I'll do another video on like what can astrology tell you about your twin flame journey, because there are things that it can tell you and things it cannot. It's kind of like tarot cards. You can get a yes or no answer from tarot cards, though it's one, it's kind of a waste of using them, and two, it's a little difficult because you're going off of symbolism. And I mean, you could use a deck of regular playing cards, or just like you could get some cards that are like get like three white colored cards and a black colored card, and if you draw the black card it's a no, or is it like if you want a yes or no answer, you can go somewhere else. And so astrology cannot answer everything for you. Like you can't just put in Sinister your chart and their chart and say, are they my twin flame? Even if it can answer that, there are so many variables in there. It's not going to say whether or not you're going to end up together. So that's not necessarily the connection in there. However, there's a reason why in twin flame journeys we talk about karmic cycles and karmics, which is people or addictions or learning lessons and things like that. And what you can see in your astrology charts, your birth charts, your progress charts, things like that, is what kind of karma are you talking about for you? You can see it for your twin, but focus more on yourself. And you can look at it and say, okay, my seventh house has everything to do with relationships and unions. And I mean, I like to think of it as the bathroom, and it's connected to Libra. And I think of it as the bathroom because, for one thing, Scorpio has to do with sex. So Scorpio gets the bedroom, that's the eighth house. But Libra is about intimacy and relationships and marriage. And so, where do we truly share the most intimacy? Usually the bathroom. I mean, it's pretty intimate to feel comfortable pooping in front of somebody else, right? So that's where intimacy goes. And if you look in your chart and you look at where you have karma in that chart, it's actually much easier to see a lot more of it in Vedic astrology. I'm not as well versed in Vedic astrology. It's kind of where I'm currently learning on things. But if you get what's called a D9 chart done and you talk with a Vedic astrologer, they can tell you much more about your karma in your seventh house, and in your houses of marriage and union and things like that. But you can still see a fair amount of that in Western astrology, which is what most of you watching this are going to be more versed in. And if you're looking in the seventh house and you're looking at, like, okay, what do you have any planets in that house? Do you have no planets in that house? What aspects do you have that are crossing through that house? Or if you do have planets or asteroids in there, where are they connected to? Where are things going on in there? And you can then get an idea of, okay, what kind of karma do I have to deal? Like, what lessons am I supposed to learn this time around? And that can't, it's not going to say that if you learn those lessons, you're definitely going to connect to your twin flame. It's not even going to say you definitely are a twin flame or anything like that, but it is connected to the journey because in order to have union with your twin flame, you have to face your karma. You have and sometimes the karma can be as simple as you have no karma to face. You've already done it, but your twin has a lot, and so you have to learn to be patient, and you have to learn to allow yourself to play and grow and have fun and be loved in all sorts of other ways while they do it. Like, it's not even that you have karma, you just have to allow them to work out their karma. Like, but there are a lot of things that you can look in your chart and say, okay, so I need to learn this, right? So let's say that okay, let's see. How can I give an example? So if your seventh house, I already gave the example. If your seventh house is empty, usually when a house is empty, that means that either you have no karma there whatsoever, in this lifetime, anyways, or it means that you're not meant to have a connection there. That's where things can sometimes be a little scary, but you also got to remember that this is part of why it's like a not a permanent determination, and each astrologer you talk to is going to give you a different answer based on their experience, perspective, and intuition. um, Now let's say that you have Saturn in your seventh house. Like, Saturn is the planet of karma. Yes, and you're right, Elizabeth. Karma is not always a bad thing. Karma can be a good thing. So let's go with that. So if let's say Saturn is in your seventh house and your Saturn is in Sagittarius, okay, and now Sagittarius is the ruler of like foreign things and travel, like far travel, because Gemini is like nearby travel and stuff, like going to the store and stuff. But Sagittarius is like traveling to another country, and it's also about wider family. Like from Gemini, you go from like siblings and parents to Sagittarius, which is like second cousins and third cousins and other relations and things like that. And it's also about spiritual growth and leadership, and it's a fire sign, so it's a lot of passion and things in there. And so if your Saturn already, your Saturn placement says a lot about your karma, your karmic lessons, both good and bad, because it's always a duality. So Sagittarians, when they are in like Sagittarian energy, when it's unevolved connection, will be quite codependent, and it can also be very passive aggressive. And so on that darker side of that, those could be some karmic lessons for you. On the good side of that, Sagittarians can also be some of the most caring people like ever, and they're so kind. They're not to be messed with. They're not weak people at all, and the energy is not weak at all. But they are so kind, and they understand how to create a balance that some of us just like we wish we could create that sort of balance. And so, and it's also to a degree, it's a kind of a leadership-esque position, but it also has to do with independence, and it's one of the more mature signs. And so it could be that you have some karmic lessons that have to do with both sides of that, like learning not to give too much of yourself, learning to allow and accept others to help you and care for you. And if that you have Saturn in Sagittarius and it's in your seventh house, that specifically has to do with your relation, like your marriage relationships, your unions, because your Mars and Venus placements, which are the I'm trying to connect to houses, but it's funny because Venus is connected to the seventh house, so we're already in there. Mars is connected to the first house with ego and things like that. But that also has to do with relationships, but it's usually more sexual relationships or business relationships. But this is what I mean, though, is like if you really get to know your chart, you can put all these pieces together. It's like having a jigsaw puzzle, and you have the box in front of you, and you can see what the picture is supposed to look like, and then you can take the puzzle pieces and put them together and say, oh, okay, so I still need to put together this corner and this centerpiece, and I've still got a pile of pieces ready to go, but I have the pieces. Like, I may not know what the pieces are supposed to look like exactly, but I have a rough idea. And if you think of those pieces as your karma, you can put that together. Now, the more that you focus on you, and the more that you're focusing on learning your karmic lessons, the good and the bad kind, like learning not to be so codependent, it's it can feel icky when you're going through it, but it's good for you. That's good. Like karmic lessons are, in fact, I'd say karmic lessons are always good. It's just going through them doesn't always feel that way because we're human and we fight it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to let go of my twin flame and let them learn their own journeys because I might be lonely or they might love somebody else or what if I fall in love with somebody else or, a million different things when it can be quite divine to learn to enjoy time to yourself and to learn to love yourself and give yourself all of the things that you would want from another 3D being. And you never know what sort of other good things can come from doing stuff like that. But in the end, karmic lessons are always good. They always bring us to a higher evolution and a higher quality of problems and answers. And I don't know, I think the further you get up there, the more you realize that we have free will, but there are no mistakes. Like there are no wrong answers. Even if you dive right back down into super dark night of the soul stuff and you like just blow everything up, it's still not bad. You're still going to learn something, and people are going to learn things from you along the way. And so there's never really a wrong answer. But astrology and the twin flame journey are connected mostly, in my opinion, because of the karmic aspect. Like the twin flame journey is all about learning self love and self worth and learning your karmic lessons. And your twin flame, even if they have a completely different chart than you, often reflects your chart. And one of the things I've noticed from because I do astrology readings in my twin flame coaching and mentoring and things like that is that the funny thing is sometimes we switch. Like if when I've noticed that you can kind of tell that with actual twin flames because like you might be looking at your chart and actually seeing things that they're doing and then be looking at their chart and see things that you're doing. The only complication with that is that karmics will also do that with us too. And it takes a little bit of time to see the differentiations. I don't know if that's quite a word, but I'm going to go with it in there. Oh, thank you, Evolved Twin Flame. Story about it. Yes, I'm still working on sharing more of my story. I started a video on it, and I'm going to do some more on it. It's just dealing with physical stuff and all these big energies has definitely taken a big bite out of me for a bit. So I'm still kind of getting back into it. It's kind of funny. Um, in any case, there are a lot of aspects in astrology that can help you in personal growth. And because the twin flame journey is all about like facing our karma, creating karma, releasing karma, things like that, and we intermingle with karmics, people, places, things like that. It's very, very connected to the twin flame journey. I won't say that it's like you have to know astrology and get into astrology in order to have a twin flame or do twin flame stuff. And it certainly won't give you all of the answers that you want, but it can certainly give you a lot more answers than you may have had if you didn't know about it or you didn't look into it. And it's kind of I kind of liken astrology to like learning a whole new language, but it's more than that. Like um it's like think about I feel like I'm going to be completely politically incorrect here, but I know, like, when I think of Chinese languages, I have a cousin who has learned most of them, and I know there are over 20 of them. Now, astrology is kind of like learning a whole new language. And once you learn it, you kind of start speaking it all over. And there's many different forms of it. I mean, you have Western astrology, which actually derived from Vedic and sidereal astrology, and they're different things. Like Western astrology is more specific on where you are geographically, whereas sidereal astrology focuses mostly on one central point to where we are, we are on Earth. And I know that I'm generalizing that and not saying it in the specifically correct way, so do your own research on that. Vedic astrology, as far as I'm aware, is one of the oldest forms of astrology, but I believe the actual oldest that we know of to date is it's either Sumerian astrology or Sumatran. I'm pretty sure it's Sumerian. Um, but I mean, there are really, really old forms of astrology. There's also there's different types of indigenous astrologies, Druid astrology, Celtic astrology, Native American astrology, and they're not even the same things per se as like Western or Vedic or sidereal, but they each have their own values, and they're each based on different cultural understandings of, like, when this planet is in this place in the sky, or when this star shows up at this place in the sky, usually we have an earthquake, or when this happens here, we see something else happen. Or if you were born on a day that the dog star was in the western part of the sky, then you are likely to be a good leader. It isn't necessarily true. I'm just saying that's, it's more of a collection of data of what we humans have observed that happens, like, that we connect, like when we see this in the sky, and then we see that thing happen over there, and we've seen that happen like a bunch of times, we can pretty much assume that it's going to happen again. Maybe not in the same way, but it's going to happen again. And then once you, I mean, and those are just the basic, I'm just talking like basic birth chart kind of stuff. Like once you get past that, you've also got progressed charts, which is you take, your birth chart tells you, it tells you about what was going on when you were born. It's a snapshot of the sky on the day and time and location where you were born. And that can tell you a lot about your karma. And it can tell you about, like, your sun sign is your life theme, like the sort of themes you're going to go through in your life that will very likely shape you. And it's kind of the overarching theme and archetype that you as a soul chose when you came into this life to experience. And then you add on all the details of it, like what makes you mad, what brings you emotional fulfillment, and where is your karma from the last life, what are you likely to learn in the next life in terms of karma, and what are your superpowers, and how can you most easily manifest things, and what's your manifesting fuel, and like there's a lot that you can learn in your birth chart alone. But then you take a progress chart, and it progresses the chart. I'm not great at the mathematics of it. I'm trying to learn it. I really, really want to, just because it's so interesting. Um, but you take it and you progress it, and it shows you where you are now, like where you have progressed from your chart. So as a simple example, when I was born, I was on the far end of Capricorn and almost already into Aquarius. Now, we typically, I mean, let's say that we live to 90, our sun sign will progress at least twice in that time. It's like every 30 years or so when you hit a Saturn's return. And so I actually have already progressed, like, from Capricorn through Aquarius, and am now just on the budding end of Pisces. And I didn't even realize that until more recently. And I had to double check in a bunch of different places because I thought, no, that doesn't make sense. I shouldn't have progressed two signs already, but it makes sense from where I was at the end of Capricorn and coming into Pisces, which is interesting because Pisces rules the 12th house and is all about spirituality and psychic senses. And I'm kind of laughing because I progressed into Pisces like near the end of last year, or sorry, near the beginning of last year, when my psychic senses totally kicked up a huge notch. And part of the reason that they did is because separation occurred with my DM, and we had been together 14 and a half years and interacting 19 years and stuff like that. And so it was a really big, like, shock to my system. But because I chose to go in a positive direction, I got to I got to enjoy, like, the beautiful sides of Pisces and have like these beautiful butterfly phoenix moments of what going like, wow, like a lot of my intuitive skills have like increased like a lot. I was gonna say a million, but that's not true. In fact, it creeps my DM out, like just how intuitive. I mean, he doesn't have to tell me much of anything. I already know. And he's like always going like, "Who told you that?" I'm like, "I don't need nobody to tell me that." And I didn't even realize, like, oh yeah, duh. Like, I that didn't happen because I progressed into Pisces. It happened because, or what is it? The chart shows what was already likely to happen. So one way or another, I was already going to progress into Pisces and have experiences with spirituality. And Pisces also has to do with like addictions and karma and things like that. So I was already going to be facing a lot of that stuff. And I looked in his chart, and he's like progressed into Leo. So it's all about learning to find yourself, your individuality amongst the group. And it totally makes sense why he's dealing with the karmic situations and third party stuff that he is. Um, yes, and hi, Amanda. And yes, being 10 years or 100. Yeah, yeah. Well, and there are different perspectives on karma too, like what that can mean. I've read a lot of different cultural perspectives on it, and I'm always like, go with the one that resonates for you. For me, I think that yes, we do typically go through cycles of continuing to learn various karma in different lifetimes, but I do also believe we have a choice in it, and we can decide, you know what, do I still want to keep learning the same lesson in the next life, or do I want to learn something else? And I think when we choose what karma we want to learn in that lifetime, we continue to go through that lesson until we learn it because we learned it. Like we just were like, I want to learn that lesson, or I want to learn those sets of lessons, or I want to know what this feels like. And so, in order to know what that feels like, I've got to gain this experience in this karmic lesson, or things like that. And I think that when we come into, let's say, the lifetime where we're going to have 3D union with our twin flame, it's, you know, we need to look at where do we need to shore things up in order to have a loving, healthy relationship with somebody who's pretty much our opposite. Because most twin flames are very, very opposite to each other. And that means cultural differences, age differences, morality differences, social differences, just all sorts of things. And in order to be able to have a relationship like that, you've really got to be comfortable with who you are and comfortable with allowing other people to be who they are. So what, you know, what lessons do you need to learn in order to be able to do that, right? And in any case, what I was saying is like, so you've got your basic birth chart astrology. You've got progressed astrology, which is where are you now? Like, what things are you going through right now? What are you transiting through? And then you have transit charts, which is like, you know, what's your birth chart doing? And how are the signs transiting through it? And in order to understand that, need to have a little bit more of an understanding of a progress chart. Then you can have composite charts and synastry charts, and you can have progressed synastry charts, which are hard to find and even harder to make. And they're really the ones that can tell you a lot more about what's going on with you and your twin. But you're going to be probably paying big bucks to an astrologer to make those charts in the first place and get them. But there are a lot of free charts that you can get. And you can even get into stuff like horary charts and electional charts, and there's so much to astrology. There's like I was saying, when you know, when you think about like the Chinese languages, there are like 20 different dialects, and a lot of them are ancient and complex and beautiful, and it's the same thing with astrology. It can be very complex. There could be a lot to do with it. There's a lot of misunderstandings. There's a lot of personal interpretations. There's a lot of art and science to it. Um, but it can kind of, like, when you're working on personal growth and learning about yourself, you can use astrology to do a lot of that. And so that's where it can really come in and connect with your twin flame journey. Is like, okay, my twin flame journey is primarily based on, you know, on personal growth and learning to love myself and face my karma and earn karma and do beautiful things that ripple out into the world because I'm coming from a place of genuine love. You can use your chart to connect to that. I think the other thing too is that once you learn astrology as a language, spirit can use it to connect with you. And I think that's where then you come into seeing readers who are doing like, you know, DF career charts by zodiac, or they're doing, you know, what's the T, DM, and karmic readings by zodiac and things like that. Mm. Yeah, so yeah, well, yeah. And so, you know, if there's an example, if your twin flame does not like your spirituality, that's something that they need to deal with karmically. And also you do too. I mean, you know, how can you be in a loving relationship with someone who hates your spirituality? I mean, it's not that it's impossible, but you know, that's karma to work out. And once it's worked out, it can be a very beautiful thing, though he also is not likely to be able to allow himself to come to you while he still has that dichotomy going on in his head. Even when you've worked it out and you're like, I don't care if you hate my religion and whatnot, I'm going to practice it and I'm comfortable with doing that and I'm comfortable with you practicing your religion. He will not be able to allow himself to come to you until he has worked that out in his head. But you can help him do that by working on your own stuff because we reflect each other. And you can look at, like, you know, okay, in that Venus placement, if it's in your ninth house, so it'd be more helpful if I knew what sign Venus was in your chart, but just having Venus in your ninth house. So in the ninth house is the house ruled by Sagittarius and by Jupiter. And so to have Venus, it's Aphrodite, the planet of love, and also the planet of its your Venus placement shows what you naturally attract to you. And so if Venus is in your ninth house, it is very likely that you attract very foreign situations that you're not necessarily uncomfortable with, but they're new to you. And it's also because the ninth house is ruled by Jupiter, it's expansive. So your Venus is like your Venus is expanding. Like love for you is expanding. Abundance and like law of attraction stuff is all about expansion for you, which is it's already about that. But it's in your ninth house. And when I think of each house, I think of it as a room in a house, like kind of a mansion style house, because most of us don't live in a house this big. But I would put the ninth house as being kind of the, how do I put it? I like to think of it as like a meditation room. It's got a little altar in it. You have a mat on the floor. It's a very quiet space because Sagittarius is all about exploring your inner and outer worlds. It's like the explorer sign. The centaur is out there with his bow and arrow, and he's exploring things, and it's like exploration and expansion. And so to have Venus in that room, in the meditation room, like that can tell you, okay, in Aries, okay, so and now we've got double fire elements in there also, and Aries is ruled by Mars, so you've got a connection in there to Mars too, which is another manifesting ability, and it has to do with your passion, your business, all those things. And to have that, to have Venus in Aries in your ninth house, you're looking at like your karmic lessons are dealing with, especially with love, are dealing with foreign situations and being able to explore yourself inside out, not outside in, but the outside will come in and force you to be in yourself. And once you go, is it another down the, yeah, each lifetime does have a theme. Yeah, it does. And typically you can see that very prominently by what your sun sign is and what house it's in. But there are obviously other things you can look at that and see like what is the theme of this lifetime. In any case, like so, just if you know each of the elements and like even if you just have a basic understanding of each thing, you can say, okay, so my Venus is in my ninth house, and ninth house also has very big connections to fathers. So maybe I need to go in and forgive my father. You'll see a lot of readers pull this card as, forgive your parents in order to create healing. So what kind of father issues, like, what kind of daddy troubles have you had in your life, and have you gone back and genuinely, not like I'll never deal with them again and I've already forgiven and forgotten it, but like genuinely released what has happened. And I mean, I like some people have some incredibly horrific experiences with father figures in their lives. And you really, really have to face that and go in and heal that. And when you start to heal that, then you start to open up more to love, and your starts dealing with their father issues and mother issues and parental wounds and things like that. And the more that you go in and you say, okay, so I need to expand on love. I need to be more about love, and I need to look at like what am I attracting, because both Venus and Jupiter are all about law of manifestation, and having Aries in there, you've got like a triad of law of attraction stuff going on there, and it's all like, I mean, you've got like a super manifesting ability there. So if you're not keeping track of, what's your self-talk like, if you're telling yourself that the journey is hard, you're manifesting a hard journey. If you really believe that the journey is difficult and hard, your thoughts, you're going to manifest things even faster than most other people do, and it's going to constantly be hard. It's going to keep going back to that. And whereas if you change it and you say, you know what, actually, hard or not, it's fun. It's good for me. And I'm super grateful for all these lessons that I'm learning. You start to to retrain yourself into more positive thinking, not unrealistic thinking, but positive thinking. You start to manifest that, you know? Yeah, but most of us do have issues with our parents too. It's not uncommon. And what I've noticed more with twin flames than with others even is that we typically have had more mother father wounds than others, and they are the hardest ones for us to face, and they're the most common things that keep us separate from our twin flames. um let's see. And you said your DM is an Aries sun sign, so his life theme is going to have a lot to do with ego and arrogance, and it's also the card. It's also connected to the card of the Emperor, and that's another way that like twin flame journeys can have connection to astrology is when you're looking at archetypes and you're looking at tarot and different things that can help you kind of get a little bit of guidance on where you're going. It's where are these connections. You could look at that again as like, if your Venus, so Venus is connected to the Empress card. And if it's in the ninth house, one, you have the ninth card, which is the Hermit, and that is very connected to the Sagittarius energy. So you have the Empress and the Hermit. You could possibly see that in that, if you are in the Empress energy and you're expansive and you're like pregnant with ideas and different things like that, but you're dealing with a DM who is a Hermit type. They're an outcast, they're a loner, they go inside, maybe they're an introvert or things like that, or maybe that's just what they're going through right now. But it could be that you need to learn to face that, or it could be that go the total other way. It could be that even though you're very much an Empress type and you're very social and loving and nurturing and you like to mother, that you need to go into some Hermit energy. You need to heal your divine masculine energy, things like that. um Trying to see. I'm not sure how to. There we go. Trying to figure out how I can see your messages because a few people have said some things. Theme for a lifetime vanity. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, it could lead to prostitution. I actually don't have any problem with the sex worker industry. I'm not. I couldn't get into it myself, but I totally understand it. I have a Scorpio in Mars, so sexuality doesn't bother me, and nor does being a Capricorn, nor does the idea of money interplaying. And it just I also have my Venus placement in Capricorn, and so like I'm very picky, and like loyalty and devotion, things like that, very much do matter to me. But I don't have any problem with anyone else that if they're in their lifetimes going that way. Um, You kind of start the next life with a clean slate. Yeah, I've heard of say evolved twin flame. I've heard of some others um also feeling the same way, that like each lifetime you start over with a clean slate, especially if like in the last lifetime you face things. You can actually look at your north node and south node and kind of have an idea of like the way that I've come to understand it is that your south node is where you were in the last lifetime in terms of what kinds of karma that you already dealt with. And it's what you tend to lean on in this lifetime in good and bad ways. But the opposite side, it's always the polar opposite, is the side that you're going towards in the next lifetime. And so you're kind of in the middle. Like you're like learning the different ways to get out of the bad habits and the bad karma of the old placement that you were in your south node, and learning to take on the more positive qualities of your north node. And you're learning different lessons in the middle to be able to go there. Now there isn't a way to say specifically like what sign are you in now. It's simply that's where you were and that's where you're going. And it I don't know. I totally love everybody's perspectives on different things, and have no problem holding multiple things in my mind. It's just not always easy to, I suppose, verbalize them. um, yeah, you can conquering themes. Yeah, Pisces moon, Leo rising. Yeah, well, and your moon sign has everything to do with your mom too, and so. And your sun sign has everything to do with your father. So you can also, there's another way that astrology can connect to your twin flame journey. Everybody's got parental wounds to deal with. Though when it comes to, facing your karma and being able to have healthy relationships with anybody, because you really got to look at it, how can I have a healthy relationship with anyone? And you got to stop putting your twin flame on a pedestal or yourself on a pedestal. So if you just look at it in a general sense of what do I need to heal in order to have healthy, loving relationships? And your mother and father wounds are going to be one of the first places that you should look, and it's going to be one of the most profound things to heal. So Your sun sign has a lot to do with your father. It's like where your father wounds and also the strengths you get from your father are going to be. And your moon sign is going to be where your mother wounds are and what strengths you get from your mother. Now, you also, first house is going to have a lot to do with father wounds, and fourth house is going to have a lot to do with mother wounds. Um, and 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 by going in that direction, wherever Aries is in your chart is going to have a fair amount to do with father stuff, and wherever Cancer is going to have a fair amount is going to have a fair amount to do with the mother. Thank you, Mercury retrograde. um that's a whole nother thing. It's like what in your chart, what planets were retrograde when you were born, and how do they affect you now? I don't know. I'm gonna wrap this up. But I really, really appreciate all of you who've come on and watched and commented, and I think I'll definitely do some more videos that talk about the connections between astrology and the twin flame journey for those that are ready to, start kind of kicking it up a notch, or really wondering, like, why is it that so many people connect the two, or how can I utilize this. For me, it was definitely, I was already an astrology geek. I absolutely loved it. I already had friends and family that came to me for astrology readings and things like that. And so when separation occurred, I was trying to think, like, what healthy things can I go towards that I can work on, or at least have fun with while we're going through this, because to be honest, I could have gotten my DM right back and just, said, okay, let's do this again. I don't want to be separate, but I really did not want to keep going through the wash cycles. I did not want to keep going through the toxicity. I knew he had lessons to learn, and my big thing was letting him do it, like not being the caretaker, not continuing to rescue him, and not doing that. And so I dove into astrology again, and I realized, like, whoa, there is a lot more that I can learn from this than I even thought that there was before. And now realizing there's a lot more I could teach about this than I was thinking before. So if you feel called to it, get into it, look into it. Or I do astrology readings, and I'm backed up because of my back stuff. So, be patient with me. But I do astrology readings, and I can do some coaching with astrology. Just send me an email at wickedlydivinefeminine@gmail.com. And when this video finishes processing, I will put it in the description box below and stuff. And I'm happy to talk with you and help you see what I can see. And there, just keep in mind, if anybody tells you they're an astrology master, they're probably full of shit, because there's so much to astrology that, I mean, it could take multiple lifetimes to know everything about astrology. But you can get to a level where you're comfortable enough with at least saying, this is what I see. And more commonly for me, when I tell people what I see, they say that, yes, that did happen to me, or that is happening to me, or that makes sense with the themes that I'm going on in my life. Or if, they'll I'll give them multiple suggestions, but you could try this or try that or try this, and the ones that they pick for themselves help them find the healing that they were looking for. Or even if I'm completely wrong, like, this is always a thing, is sometimes you will get completely crappy advice, but actually it still helped you because you recognized it was bad advice or it was incorrect, so then you knew what was correct or what was right. So again, no coincidences, and no bad answers, no bad choices, things like that. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, all the regular YouTube stuff. I will catch you in the next video.